Okay, good morning, everyone. We're calling the September 11th meeting of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority together. It is 9:07 a.m. I want to take an opportunity to introduce two of our new members. Mr. Chapman, Mr. Norwich, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm happy to have you join us. Are there any public comments?
No, ma'am, none received.
All right. So why don't we do a moment of silence in remembrance of 9/11, if you don't mind. Okay, thank you very much. Just so you know, all of the mics are not muted. It just seems simpler to keep them open. But I'm telling you that in advance, so you're not having any sidebar conversations you don't want anyone else to hear. So we'll move, are there any public comments? I don't know if I asked that or not.
No.
None? Okay, perfect. So we'll move to the adoption of the minutes from the August 14 meeting.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Item number 3, discussion and action on board resolutions to authorize the executive director to enter into master contracts for engineering services with the following firms: CEA Engineering Group and Hewitt Zollers, Inc.
Yes, ma'am. Ray Mateus, Executive Director of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority. So the item before you is item number 3, is seeking authorization to execute 2 master contracts for engineering services. As you may recall, we went through a procurement that ended with a board action on June 12th that authorized the staff to go out and negotiate master agreements with 5 separate engineering firms. The idea behind this procurement was that we were looking for a rotation where we can pull down engineering, professional engineering firms as needed. Last month, you may recall, we signed 2 of these master contracts, which included Dannenbaum Engineering and Moreno Cardenas, Inc. Those were executed after last board meeting. Today you have CEA Group and Hewitt Zollers, and we've got one left, AECOM, which we are negotiating now, and that hopefully will be before you next month. From these master agreements then, as the individual projects arise, we will issue work authorizations that will also come before the board for approval. So with that, and subject to your questions, I would recommend approval of these items.
Are there any comments or questions?
Are each of the contracts for each of the 5 firms roughly identical?
Yes. Yes, sir. There are some minor tweaks in each, but they are basically the same.
Any other questions? I'll
Motion
entertain
to
the motion.
Second. Excuse me. Interrupted.
Did you have a question, Mr. No. Oh, I thought you were going to the microphone. So we have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay, next is item 4, discussion and action on board resolutions related to the development of the Mission Ridge Boulevard Phase 2 project in order to A, authorize the chair to execute an interlocal agreement with El Paso County for the provision of construction funding. B, authorize the executive director to execute an agreement with El Paso Water Utility Public Service Board for construction of certain water and wastewater facilities. And C, to authorize the executive director to execute work authorization number 27.7 with Atkins North America, Inc. for construction management services.
Thank you. This item, as read into the record, relates to Mission Ridge Boulevard Phase 2 and consists of 3 separate components, 3 separate agreements. As you may recall, back in June, the board authorized the selection and authorized staff to negotiate and execute a construction contract with JAR Construction. So that is on hold while we wait for these remaining items. These were being worked through specifically with El Paso Water. We worked with Water for quite some time trying to get to an agreement. Really what these do, though, let me outline what they do. As you may recall, Mission Ridge 2 is part of the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan, which is a slate of projects out on the far east side. Those are mainly funded through the county's vehicle registration fee. And this project is one of those. However, this project also includes water and wastewater facility improvements that were requested by El Paso Water. So what you see before you is item 4A is the interlocal between the RMA and the county, whereby the county provides $6.5 million, and all of this is in your backup. They are providing $6.5 million of vehicle registration fee proceeds for us to construct the facility. Item 4B then is the agreement with El Paso Water, whereby Water provides $1.7 million for the water improvements that they have requested us to construct while we're in the area. And then lastly, 4C is a work authorization with our general engineering consultant, which is Atkins. They provide construction management for the oversight of the construction activities for this particular project, and that work authorization is in an amount of $878,000. So as you may recall, with our general engineering consultant, we have one master agreement, and each time a task or a project comes up, we execute a new work authorization. That's why we have work authorization 27.7 for this particular item. So subject to your questions, then I would recommend approval of all these items.
Are there any questions?
Joyce, I'll just point out that I'm going to be abstaining from the vote because we've got some property in the area.
Okay, fine, thank you. So that's noted. Do you have any questions? Anybody else?
Move to approve.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So unanimous with one abstention, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Item 5, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute a settlement agreement with Texas Alliance Group related to the repair of damage to work on the East Lake Boulevard Phase 1 project.
Yes, ma'am. On this one, as you know, we have Abrams as the construction contractor for East Lake Boulevard Phase 1. While they were constructing work on East Lake, adjacent to East Lake is an auto zone that's operated by Texas Alliance Group. While Texas Alliance Group was trenching for a water line, they caused some damage to the concrete that was placed by Abrams. In fact, it was a right turn bay that turns into one of the side streets. So what you see before you is a settlement agreement that the amount in the settlement agreement matches the change order that's proposed by Abrams to repair the damage done by Texas Alliance Group. So that's what you see before you. Subject to, we also have our general engineering consultant here, should you like to get into any more detail. Otherwise, I would recommend approval of this item.
Anyone have any questions? Yes.
Was there anything contentious in the process?
Nothing. In fact, Texas Alliance Group has been trying to settle this for quite some time. We were working with the county to try to figure out what the best approach was, whether the settlement should be between the county and Texas Alliance Group or the RMA, or directly with the contractor. So in the end, we all agreed that it would route best through the Regional Mobility Authority, and then we can issue a change order directly to Abrams.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Motion approved. Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Item 6, presentation, discussion, and action on the following items related to the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan. A, presentation on change orders recently approved by the Executive Director, and B, board resolution authorizing the Executive Director to execute change order number 20R, cleanup revised for the Old Waco Tanks Road project.
For the benefit of the new members, there is a board resolution that was executed some time ago that allows for the executive director to implement change orders up to $100,000. However, that the resolution also requires the staff to bring forward any change orders that were done in the prior month up to the next board meeting. So that's what you see before you as item 6A. So item 6B is, as read into the record, a revision to a prior change order that was authorized. So today we have with us Edgar Fino, who is part of our general engineering consultant team, and he's going to run us through item 6A.
May I ask a question real quick? So these are items that are already been approved by the chairwoman, and we're now just being advised to what those changes were.
Well, item 6A is the staff report to the board pursuant to that resolution, in which the executive director actually has the authorization to execute a change order up to $100,000. So it's not the board chair. And then item 6B, we're bringing it back. And so item 6B is an interesting one for a couple of reasons. It's a change order that is actually a deductive change order, so it's a negative. The resolution doesn't speak to negatives, so we, as a matter of practice, have always brought negative change orders to the board for action, as opposed to simply the executive director authorizing it. On top of that, we had previously brought change order 20, which was a negative. However, we're revising that original negative. It's still a negative, but we're bringing it back because we brought the original one. So I hope that clarifies it.
Right, Madam
Okay.
Chair, board members, Ed Graffino with the GEC. Could I get the PowerPoint presentation? All right, thank you. This is the 2013 El Paso CMP recent change orders. I have one change order that was approved by the executive director and one change order that requires board action. The first project is East Lake Boulevard Phase 1. And it's change order number 8 for drill shaft traffic signal poles 24-inch for a total of $19,722.42. That's the change order amount. Our total change orders for the project have been $716,304.23, which is 3.03% of the total construction project. The next change order that requires board action is on Old Waco Tanks Road. Change orders 1 through 7 have already been presented to the board. The same thing with 8 through 16 and 17 through 20. The last one was change up 20 with the cleanup. And the one I need to present is change order 20R, which is a cleanup revision, which is a negative $275,442.64. That's still pending approval. Old Waco Tanks Road, we have one base bid, 20 change orders, 113 bid items. Change order 20, which was authorized by the board on May 8th, 2019. We identified the total underruns at a negative $380,820.54. There was a underrun that was included that shouldn't have been, which was $31,795.20. The total underruns should have been a negative $349,025.34. So change order 20 will be replaced by change order 20R. So 20R, as far as the change order, there was 58 items that underran for a total of $349,025.34. As far as the negative, there was 17 items that overran for $73,582.70. So the final cost for change order 20R is a negative $275,442.64. Any questions before this last slide?
Question.
Yes.
Okay, East Lake Boulevard Phase 1, that number 8, drill shaft, traffic
Yes, sir.
sign pole, is that one?
No. That's 9 poles, not
Okay.
9 poles. It's
All right.
9 drill shafts. We're putting in 24-inch drill shafts, 6 feet deep, and it's by the linear foot in regards to what we're paying the contractor.
Okay, the slide on the screen shows 19,000.
Yes, sir.
The handout that I have shows 29,000.
That's correct. We found an error very late yesterday afternoon. The additional 10,000 is for another change order that we had lumped into here, and it was decided to remove and make them 2 change orders instead of just making them 1. So the reason for the difference in cost is that second change order that we're going to proceed with the contractor later on, we're looking at a $10,000 cost. So this change order here is for the drill shafts at $19,700.
Thank you very much.
The 10,000 isn't related to that at all?
No, it
Okay.
is not. It is not.
The underrun, that's a significant number. How did we get there? I mean,
Well, those were based on the plan sheets, that we had, that the contractor was using. A lot of the items were not were not finalized. As far as we did not have to construct the items as far as as far as the underrun items, they were not necessary. Let's say we had on the plans, we show 100 gadgets and we installed 90. So that's 10 gadgets that we underran. So it's 58 items that we did have as far as an underrun. And it's small items in regards to 5 or 10 as far as quantities, but they do add up in the long run. So this is work that the contractor did not do.
Is it also like materials that you didn't need?
Well,
Some of it material and
not so
supplies?
much the materials, because, well, it could include material on hand, as
Okay.
far as not paying for the material that was not used.
Okay.
Edgar, one of the slides you showed had total change orders approved of $81,000, which reflected 1% of the total project bid cost. When you subtract out this cleanup revision, do we reduce the original contract amount, or do we arrive at the $81,000 number? I guess I'm just curious, does your math reflect the minus 275, and that means that with this action, the total change orders approved will be $81,000, and the original bid price will increase by 81, or are we going to get a sum at the end of the day of all of the change orders reducing the original contract amount?
That's what this is as
That's
far
where
as
we
all
end up.
these numbers here. In regards to when we clean it out, when we zero everything out and balance it, these are the numbers that come out for the project. Any other questions before the board action?
Everyone okay? All your questions answered? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for item 6B. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passed. Moving on to item 7, quarterly presentation, update, and discussion on the following programs or projects. A, 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan, and B, Borderland Expressway Project.
Mr. Fino will also present this update.
Yes, Madam Chair, board members, Edgar Fino with the GC. This is the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan update. I will go over the project map, the project listing, and the project updates to include a design, what's under construction, what was funded by the Camino Real RMA, and what projects have been completed. Here's the CMP project map. We have 9 that are funded under VRF 1 and 1 that's funded under VRF 2, which is East Lake Phase 1. Project list, we have under design, we have Darrington Road, Pelicano, and O.T. Smith. Projects under construction are Mission Ridge 2, Vista del Sol, Rojas, and East Lake 1. Completed projects is Greg Edgemere, Old Waco Tanks, El Camino Real, and East Lake 2. Projects in design, Darrington Road. We're finalizing the drainage plans with the developer in regards to the location of the ponds. Design work, we're at 95%. We're ready. Once we finalize the pond design, we are ready to bid it out, and we're looking at winter, this coming winter that's coming up. Another project under design is Pelicano. The plans have been approved by TxDOT. We are waiting for the Federal Highway Administration to provide us a letter of authority for Pelicano, and we're looking at a fall bid opening sometime in November. It could get pushed up to October depending on when the letter of authority is received from the Federal Highway Administration. So we are prepared to either do an October bid opening or November, and we provided that information to TxDOT in regards to the RMA bid opening process. The next project is OT
Okay,
Smith.
what's
Oh, excuse me?
What's the breakout of that 28 million? How much from VRF1 and how much from federal fund?
Oh, the percentage, that's on the LaPafa. It's not,
I believe it's 80/20. 80
Yeah.
is federal and state, and actually, you know what, let me get back to you, because I think we actually did get a reduction in the local contribution. So if you don't mind, let me send something to you, to the board, if that's all right.
Okay.
let me proceed. There's no more questions. OT Smith. The shared use path is scheduled to be bid out by El Paso County. The letting scheduled for this month, September 30th. In regards to bidding out the project, and El Paso County will be taking care of that. It's already been advertised, and they're looking at a September 30 bid opening. All right, we have 4 projects that are under construction. Mission Ridge Phase 2. This is a project that was on the agenda item number 4 in regards to the interlocals and the agreement and the work authorization. JAR Concrete is the contractor. That's the contract amount, and we will execute the contract with JAR soon. They'll be presented to the board, right, as far as once we execute that. So we should be starting soon in regards to the construction of Mission Ridge 2. Next project is Vista del Sol. Phase 2 and 3 open to traffic from Joe Battle to Addison. Phase 4, we are working on the punch list items and prepping for the final striping. We actually opened it up late last week to the traveling public. We with some lane closures due to some medium work that we have to do, but Vista del Sol is construction-wise, we are ready to open up. And here's a photo of the eastbound direction, prepping for the final striping. Next project is Rojas Drive. All we're working on right now is the plant and irrigation as far as the ongoing maintenance for this project, as far as the plant and irrigation. But the road is open and the traveling public is using Rojas. And the big project that's under construction is East Lake Phase 1. Complete to date, we're at 59.23%. Phase 2, East Lake southbound ongoing construction from Darrington to Rojas. Contractors installing the concrete in regards to the southbound main lanes, and we should be coming up, our next pours are scheduled for next week, weather permitting, to start for our third pool in regards to the concrete work for the main lanes. Here's the concrete work as far as the southbound direction, the ongoing work that's going on, and here's the placement of some of the concrete as far as southbound direction. Completed projects. First one is a Greg Edgemere. This is open to the public. This was funded by the Camino Real RMA with county developer participation and the county taking care of the inspection. Old Waco Tanks Road. We're working on the closeout documents. Once we get this change order 20R approved, which it has been, once we get it executed, then we will start sending out the letters to the agencies in regards to completion of the project. Camino Real National Historic Trail, the signing job, this has been completed and the signs are installed. And the last project is East Lake Phase 2. Project is complete. We're under warranty as far as 1 year after construction completion. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions on the update?
I
You
saw
need-
one of those historic trail signs this morning. It's the first time I kind of noticed it. Interesting, so
Okay.
it's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Everyone, any more detail on anything people want to know about? Okay, good. So moving on then to
Actually, that'll take us to item 7B.
the expressway
Correct.
project,
ma'am.
okay.
I'll provide this project update for you. So today we're going to talk about the project description, the partners involved, the status, and then, of course, we're always open to questions. The Borderland Expressway project is what we're talking about. When you look up on the map, we're really talking about 3 distinct projects that link together to become the Borderland Expressway. 2 parts, one part in Texas, which is the blue and white. The part in New Mexico includes the orange and the green. So when you're looking at this project, you may have heard about it in the past being referenced as the Northeast Parkway. That's the Texas component. In New Mexico, it's actually New Mexico 213 and 404. To give you context, 404 is actually the Anthony Gap. It connects to I-10. So when you put all of these projects together, then again, they are locally referred to as the Borderland Expressway project. Northeast Parkway is a new project, new construction, while the New Mexico activities are really upgrades to existing roadways. This one is complex, as you can imagine, since it involves multi-jurisdictional sections and requires lots of different partners. We've been speaking with Fort Bliss, with TxDOT, New Mexico DOT, the city, county, Doña Ana County, El Paso Water, El Paso MPO, UTEP, and of course the RMA is involved as well. Okay. The Borderland Expressway Coalition is an ad hoc group that was put together by stakeholders who were interested in progressing the project. They've been meeting monthly for quite some time now. The RMA is a member of this loose coalition, but it also includes many of the project partners that I referenced in the previous slide. To date, the coalition, which I should mention, Jim Smith is heavily involved, Mr. Parker is heavily involved, Mr. Wardy as well. If you all have any comments, please chime in as we go through this. To date, though, the coalition includes the support of an outside consultant to TxDOT, which is HNTB. They support the coalition and have provided various work product to date, including a project video, a white paper, and also the project overview, which I believe you have in front of you. They are also working currently, HNTB is working with TxDOT, along with the City of El Paso and some other folks on an economic evaluation that could be used to support the project as well. So there's a
Excuse
lot-
me, does that evaluation include traffic counts? Or has that been done
don't believe-
already?
The traffic counts were done. So there's an environmental part, which in fact actually this slide speaks to who's doing what. TxDOT is actually involved in the environmental assessment,
Okay.
and part of that includes the traffic counts
Okay.
as part of the original document. For that environment, the schematic design is essentially complete. The environmental assessment are ongoing. They have a public hearing planned for the fall of 2019. New Mexico DOT, of course, is working on the New Mexico sections. 404 is a widening project that will be let next year, while preliminary design on 213 will be issued soon. Funding for the New Mexico components has been identified and allocated through the El Paso MPO. And the MPO, I should mention, has included, I believe, each of the components of the Borderland Expressway in its 2045 long-range plan.
Have there been any conversations with New Mexico about the RMA managing those projects?
We have discussed it with them on a couple of occasions. However, they've elected to pursue it themselves.
All right,
At one point in the coalition meetings, we were talking about the RMA handling the entire project, and that was when we were looking at pursuing a federal grant called an InfraGrant program. If we were able to pull those funds down, then it would have made a lot of sense for the RMA to handle both sections. However, since that one didn't work out, New Mexico DOT has been securing the individual funding components for each of their sections, so they're moving ahead.
Was it that we didn't get the grant or we didn't apply for it?
You know, we're preparing the application at the very end. We didn't apply. TxDOT had some issues with the application, so in the end, the region didn't apply for it.
Okay.
But, Madam Chair, let me make just a couple comments here, because that's really key. This whole thing wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for the RMA, because this ad hoc group was put together as an effort to start to make things happen for that infra grant. So this ad hoc group was put together with a variety of chairs, very, very informal, that started out way back the first time with Civilian Aid Secretary of the Army, Tom Thomas, and then Joe Wardy picked up the ball and ran with that and used that as an entity to bring things together. But without the leadership of the RMA, working in such a way to bring all these different entities together, this wouldn't be happening to the degree that it is. So Joe and Les were part of an original committee that was put together with the RMA just prior to me coming on board, and then it kind of formed up and became I wish you all would have an opportunity in the future to see this very loose relationship between so many different players, how effectively it's working, and you'll see some of the results of that. I've just been blown away by how impressive it is, but the point I wanted to make is we wouldn't be here right now if it hadn't been for the leadership role taken by the RMA and members of the RMA in pulling this together. Original intent going after that infra grant, but then it created a synergy all on its own, which is pretty impressive and something we ought to look forward to in our strategic planning when we do in December about future things, about how the RMA can get involved, because it wouldn't have happened without us.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
I would be remiss, Madam Chair, if we didn't recognize, I was involved early on quite a bit, haven't been able to follow up, but the persistence of Jim Smith in this exercise.
Yeah.
He has been totally dedicated to this and has spent an inordinate amount of time, way beyond the norm, I would say, for the vision to help make this happen. And I had my doubts when we formed this coalition, but I was so impressed that everybody just rolled up their sleeves and went to work on an unofficial basis just to get the discussions going and get it to this point. So there's been a lot of hard work and a lot of commitments done. As you can see, New Mexico's already moving, it started with a redesign for the 404 exit, because they were planning to redesign it that would not have been conducive to this project, and they changed all that. People, Jerry Pacheco has been very involved, Powers at Santa Teresa. So it's been a really team effort, and Jim gets a lot of credit for helping herd cats in this exercise.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback.
Can I ask a question? Is the 404 going to be widened to be 2-lane each direction?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
Yes, sir.
They're already working on that, or is that done? I haven't been on Anthony Gap in a while.
That one, the 404 widening will let next year, so they'll award next year
Okay.
for a construction contractor.
It's been in design. It's in design.
Okay.
Yeah, the New Mexico portion, they were kind of way behind. It's like a long shot in a long horse race. They were kind of lagging way back, and they're all of a sudden at the front of the pack. They've got everything going now in the full design. They've got all the funding to build a full 4-lane divided for the whole route of 213 and 404, which is, if you know that whole situation there of how New Mexico works, that's a small miracle, or maybe a large miracle, because one of the issues we were dealing with initially was in Texas was, why should we build this? It's just going to stop at the border, and everybody's going to fall off the end of the earth. And so now it's almost like reverse. And so we're trying to get all of the parties, and they're working so well together. That's what's amazing. And just a comment going back to what Joe said, my love affair with this highway took place way back about 25 years ago when I was still on active duty, and we in our master planning at Fort Bliss were incorporating this transportation network. And this thing, that's when I really got involved with it. But this thing is very crucial to the overall lines of communication and network of transportation for Fort Bliss as well as the entire region. So it was kind of a transition that just happened by osmosis. So
One small comment too. This also provides significant relief for transcontinental and traffic within our MSA when I-10 begins rebuilding.
Yeah.
And absent this, you'd see I-10 become a parking lot
That's
to a
great
greater
way.
degree.
I was thinking just slightly about, commerce when you direct people around the city center, hotels, restaurants, things of that nature. But we probably have so much traffic, especially with construction, we need to have some way for people to move around. So that makes sense.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
From my experience, look, trucks look for the path of least resistance. This is gonna have significant truck traffic
Yeah.
because El Paso has gridlock without the improvements to I-10. And if we can divert a huge amount of truck traffic onto this arterial to move it away, El Pasoans have this thought forever that I-10 is the personal property of El Paso. It's the major east-west thoroughfare in the United States that has experienced exponential growth in the last 25 or 30 years with no end in sight. So just to point out that for our newer members.
Madam Chair, one other comment. This is, if you look at the maps and such, you'll see that this will, in the future, aid economic development in northeast El Paso, which has been sadly lacking in the future. So,
Thank you.
So to date, the board has approved 2 separate board resolutions related to this particular project. In April of 17, they directed staff to work with TxDOT to develop options for the development of the Northeast Parkway. In May of 18, then they directed staff to develop a memorandum of understanding between each of the project partners. Now this particular MOU was really related to the InfraGrant project. While, as Mr. Smith noted, the InfraGrant application didn't go forward, it really created this synergy that we're working off of today. Briefings have been provided to many local elected and agency officials. The commissioners have each received briefings, council members, El Paso MPO Board, Water Utility Board, Borderplex Alliance, and others. Former Representative Pickett was a big supporter of this project. He briefed the governing board of the Texas Department of Transportation, which is at TTC, back in September of 18, and actually proposed a particular funding approach back in 18. Meetings have also been held with various agency staff, including the city's Economic Development Department. That's because there is a transportation reinvestment zone in the area that was originally created with this project in mind. And also there have been meetings with El Paso Water, and this relates to access to the right-of-way. Much of the right-of-way in which this project could pass would run through El Paso Water land. So that's been important meetings that have been ongoing. And of course, briefings will continue to stakeholders and interested parties as needed. A couple other notes. The El Paso MPO is working on a program of priority projects, and really what they're doing is they're basing it off of what we've done here twice now, which is the 2008 Comprehensive Mobility Plan and the 2013 County Comprehensive Mobility Plan, where outside of the normal planning process, priority projects are identified by project partners and expedited. So the MPO is currently working on a list of new projects that we could focus on as a region, and we believe that the Borderland Expressway will be included. In addition, there is a fairly new entity that's run out of the El Paso Chamber of Commerce, which is referred to as the El Paso Mobility Coalition. And they're really intended to be an advocacy group. They've identified 4 projects that you see there on that map as priority projects for the region, which include the Artcraft Interchange at I-10, the Borderland Expressway, the Reimagine, and 2 sections of Reimagine I-10, one which is downtown, and then the second one which runs from downtown heading east towards the airport. So those 2 segments, they believe, along with Artcraft Interchange and the Borderland Expressway are the top priorities. So I know that they've been doing some advocacy on behalf of those 4 priority projects. So there's a lot of steam building up for this project. So that's all I have for you today. But I did want to brief you on it, and as you'll come to see, the staff provides quarterly updates on project development. Next meeting, we'll have quarterly updates on the financial activities of the board as well. So subject to your questions, that's all I have for you. No action required on this item, though.
So I think it would be useful as we plan for our strategic planning session. For the benefit of the new members, we are going to use the December board meeting to do like a strategic planning session. I don't know, did you discuss that with them? Okay. So we're going to ask everyone commit like a larger block of time for that. But I do think it would be really worthwhile either to have the MPO come to that. I know it's a public meeting, so that if we have questions about things going on, in the planning effort, it would, I think, help us to understand where there might be roles for us, or to maybe have them present at the November meeting, actually go through kind of the 2045 plan, what's in the 5-year plan, what's in the 10, 15-year, where we can really gauge kind of where we might fit in terms of providing some leadership as it relates to executing projects.
Sure, we can do that in November.
Would you prefer them
I
to
think
brief
that's
in November at the board meeting just to do an update?
I think both.
Okay, and then have them at the meeting. It's an open meeting, so
Certainly.
we can't exclude them, but I think it would be really worthwhile to invite the MPO, if no one else, maybe even TxDOT, so
Certainly.
that, because they have like the the MPO plans for everyone, and it would give us a sense. They also do the planning for the international bridges, right?
I believe
Is some of that
they
included
do.
in there?
Well, so the MPO, you have to run a project through there if it's regionally significant, so I would think that all of the
So
bridge
public
activities-
transit, international bridges, and roads all do, right?
I believe so.
I think it'd be good to have a good understanding of what's on the horizon for the international bridges as it relates to capital programs. The 2045 plan, though, I'm more interested in the next 10 years, because that's where funding typically is, and maybe even some metro, to see if there's something going on there with regard to public transit.
Certainly.
If you would ask them just to give us enough detail so we really have a good grasp of things. I'd rather invest some time to really fully comprehend that.
Absolutely. We'll do that in November.
Okay, thanks.
Madam Chair, I think that's a great idea. The other thing that we were talked about in the past about maybe touching was working with the city of El Paso and using the wherewithal and capabilities of the RMA to help the city do what they need to do in a kind of a coordinated, planned way. And that's something that we haven't pursued. We've talked about quite a bit, but it's something that, and it's an expertise you bring to
So
the
I actually had
board.
asked Raymond to start meetings with the city. I know he had a meeting with the mayor and the assistant city manager for transportation to talk about like what's on their capital program. I actually spoke with Carrie Weston, who I know really well, primarily about the international bridges, because I felt like that was a good opportunity to maybe kind of work with them to see if they would like for us to maybe manage and execute their capital program. It's sort of self-contained in and of itself, a different category of funding, and I don't know how far we've gotten. It might be worth our while to see if any of them would like to come to the meeting, to the planning session, if they would commit some time so we could kind of probe that.
Certainly.
I do think part of the planning session should be where can we provide the best opportunity to help people execute projects, either through funding them, constructing them, whatever, like we've done with the county. I think the county mobility plan is a really good example of an entity basically working with us and contracting with us to be their capital projects manager. It's almost wholesale, exclusive. We've done all their projects. And then we did the funding and for some of the other projects where we've actually financed, and we have that capability, which has been really good. And I think it would be useful for the city to look at that in some areas where they want to advance projects where they maybe don't want to issue bonds, and maybe do something with us that's more transactional. And so I know I was here with the city when we did the 2008 mobility plan. And so I know, like, when we put that together, I mean, we formed the transportation TIP, the transportation investment, the TERS, I guess it was, the transportation TERS for the East, and that leveraged dollars to help provide the local match. And so there's a lot of opportunities. But since the 2008 plan's been done, there's really not a lot of activity with the city. And they're not executing projects. I mean, I'm not there, but I think everybody knows those projects aren't moving like they should. And it might be a really good opportunity. So you might want to reach out to them to see if they'd be interested in at least participating in the planning session with us, so we could get a sense from them, like, what their interest might be to work with us on some of these things.
I will. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so the next one is item 8. It's the update, discussion, and action on the executive director's report, and there's several items under that. Do I need to read those all into the record?
Yes, ma'am, if you don't mind.
Okay, no problem. A, TxDOT Title VI Training, Austin, Texas. B, the FY19 annual audit underway. C, the FHWA workshop peer exchange in Washington, D.C. and Chicago, Illinois. D, Border West Expressway meeting, Austin, Texas. And E, New Sun City Cycle Station at Franklin in Oregon.
Good morning, Robert Studer. I attended a training that TxDOT put on in Austin 2 weeks ago about Title VI. Title VI is about non-discrimination, and it has to do if any entity gets federal funds, then you are governed by Title VI. So we've got background on it. There's a couple NPO members that were there as well. To give you an idea, imagine that we moved forward with building the Northeast Parkway, and it ran through a neighborhood, and in that neighborhood, one side was predominantly one race and the other side was the other race, and suddenly the school and the grocery store are on one side of town, and by building that road we're limiting access to a minority group or something like that. That would be a violation that we could get in trouble for. So being aware of those types of things and doing outreach is another one. So let's say that we had a population in El Paso that spoke predominantly one language, and we only posted it in English and we didn't post it in another language. We're limiting access for them to come and provide feedback on projects. So I learned a lot about that. One of the really cool things that looks like is going to happen is they've got a tool. It's a very small office within TxDOT, like 3 people that oversee the whole state. So they really don't get out into the various parts of the state all the time. So they're creating an online tool where we will be able to submit our documents and our plans and let them look at it and review it from Austin and give us any feedback that, hey, you need to do this or you're missing this sort of thing. So they're hoping to launch that later this year. So we wanted to give you an update on that training. Item B is our annual audit is underway. You'll recall at the last board meeting, we brought you the engagement letter and you approved. This is our 5th year with this audit firm, so it's our last year with them. We had our entrance meeting last week on Tuesday. We've met with the city and agreed to some timelines on when we need to have items to them, and they'll have turnaround to us. In fact, we meet with them tomorrow on some of that discussion. And you all should have had some documents that were passed around that we're asking for your signature on, and if we can get those back from you today, that would be great.
So So I'll cover items C, D, and E. C and D are just updates, just letting you know what we're up to these days. Federal Highway Administration had requested that I speak at a conference that they held, which was really intended to review a working manual that they've developed. It relates to a slate of programs called value capture. So when you're talking about value capture, you're really talking about TIF districts, transportation reinvestment zones, all sorts of different ways to raise capital for heavy transportation projects. So they developed a manual at the federal level that they were going to then distribute down to the state level. So they asked me and a couple of folks from the city of El Paso and Horizon City as well to come out and review the manual with them. So it was a working workshop to review the manual before they actually released it to their crews. The reason they invited us here from the region is that we have obviously a lot of experience. We were the first ones out of the gate with the transportation reinvestment zone in the state of Texas, and then beyond that, we were very innovative in terms of how we use the TRZ, including packaging it as a Build America bond and using it in really innovative ways. So they were looking for that type of expertise. So I was able to participate in that workshop. It was, I think, very interesting. After that, actually, I was then asked to attend a similar workshop in Chicago, and that'll happen next week. That workshop is actually a peer exchange where so this is really intended to benefit the folks that live in Chicago, in Illinois, and the neighboring states. So they're bringing in all sorts of folks from the area to hear specific case scenarios. So they're bringing me, someone from Fairfax County, and a third individual, I forget where he's from. But we're going to speak about our experiences and exchange information. We're going to walk through scenarios where if they were interested in pursuing a transportation reinvestment zone in Chicago, how would they use it? So I'll be going to Chicago next week. Both of those trips were paid for in full by Federal Highway. Just letting you know about that. And then item D is an update. As you know, we've been discussing Border West Expressway over the last few months. I will be meeting, and as you may recall, we requested a meeting with the executive director. That meeting has now been scheduled, and it's scheduled for next Thursday, so I will be in Austin for that meeting. And of course, I'll report back to the board after that. And then lastly, just some good news. We've been working with the city on placing a new Sun Cycle station at the corner of Franklin and Oregon, right in front of the Gray Dog Bar. And we've received that approval. And in fact, I believe it's going in this morning, if I remember correctly. So that's some good news on that front. So that's all I have for you, subject to your questions. I think we are done with the agenda.
So has Tracy Yellen reached out to you yet?
I just got an email as we were speaking.
Just so you know, I think I mentioned that I had reached out to Tracy Yellen at the Paso Norte Foundation to see if she would facilitate our planning session. She's done that for the Workforce Board on several occasions. She's really good. She used to be a consultant, pretty neutral, has a nice process. She doesn't charge a lot. In fact, she doesn't charge us anything, but we give a donation to the foundation, sort of, or like make a contribution to the foundation. And so she agreed that she'd be willing to work with us on this. So I met with her and I kind of talked about what we were trying to do, and I asked her to get with you, to visit with you and get your thoughts and Bobby's thoughts on like a process and kind of what you see us trying to accomplish. I also mentioned to her that it might be worthwhile to do kind of a survey of the board in advance to kind of get some feedback and information from you in terms of what you think are the opportunities, the priorities, things we might be doing different, that type of thing. So we can come to the table with some preliminary kind of working knowledge of kind of our mutual kind of expectations or ideas and thoughts, plus the information I think we can get from the MPO in terms of kind of what's out there on the horizon, what dollars might be available, that it would give us a good kind of framework to start and be really productive. So I just wanted to make sure that she followed up with you.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you might expect something. If she's going to do that, then would you just let the board know to expect that she might be reaching out to them?
I will.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any executive session?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good. Thank you. Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved? Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all very much.
What time do you have? 10:01. Thank you.